Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Saturday, April 11th, 2026, and you're listening to Alex's News. In Riverside, we are looking at a comfortable day with a high of 67.4 degrees and a low of 56. It is a pleasant day to enjoy the outdoors. On today's show, we will take a closer look at the significant negotiations between the United States and Iran as they work toward a potential peace treaty in Pakistan. We will also examine the challenges causing Eric Swalwell's campaign for governor to falter. Plus, we have a roundup of several other stories making headlines around the globe. There is plenty to cover, so stay tuned for all of this and more right here on Alex's News. We start this morning with a historic and high-stakes story out of Pakistan. Peace talks between the United States and Iran are officially underway today in Islamabad. It's the highest-level direct engagement between these two countries since the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Ethan has been following this all morning. Ethan, set the scene for us. What exactly is happening on the ground today?
Grace, today Pakistani officials are shuttling between separate rooms at the Serena Hotel in Islamabad's heavily fortified red zone. The goal is enormous. Both sides are trying to turn a fragile 2-week ceasefire into a lasting peace treaty. PBS News and the Associated Press report this could end a catastrophic 6-week war that's reshaped the entire Middle East. Pakistan deployed 10,000 security personnel and even declared a 2-day public holiday just to manage the logistics of getting everyone there safely.
Take us back a bit. How did we get to this point?
The conflict started on February 28th with what the U.S. codenamed Operation Nightfall. According to PBS News and the Associated Press, it opened with a massive air campaign and a so-called decapitation strike in Tehran. That strike killed Iran's longtime supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. It was a shocking escalation, and it immediately set the tone for a fast and brutal war. Israel participated as well, with the joint operation called Roaring Lion on their side.
So the supreme leader was killed in the opening hours. Who's running Iran now?
CBS News and The Guardian report that the assembly of experts moved quickly but secretly. On March 8th, they elected Khamenei's son, Mojtaba Khamenei, as the third supreme leader. He'd been a behind-the-scenes power broker for years, with deep ties to the Revolutionary Guard. He's actually been leading the country from a secure, undisclosed location while recovering from serious facial and leg injuries he sustained during those initial strikes.
And it's Mojtaba who authorized these peace talks?
That's right. He essentially had no choice. Iran's economy is collapsing under the weight of 40 straight days of bombing and a near-total blockade of its oil exports. The country simply can't sustain this war much longer. So even though he comes from a hardline background, he gave the green light to send negotiators to Islamabad.
Let's talk about the toll of this war. What are the numbers looking like after 6 weeks?
They're staggering, Grace. PBS News reports over 3,000 Iranians and 1,888 Lebanese citizens have been killed. More than 1 million people have been displaced in Lebanon alone. On the other side, 23 Israeli civilians and 13 U.S. service members have lost their lives. It's an asymmetric toll, but the suffering has been widespread across the region.
And there's been a massive impact on oil markets too, right?
Huge. Iran has essentially choked the Strait of Hormuz, cutting ship traffic from around 100 vessels a day down to just 12. That strait handles about 20% of the world's oil supply, so the consequences hit instantly. Brent crude shot up to roughly $97 a barrel, a 30% spike. BBC News notes that reopening that waterway is actually one of the primary goals of this entire summit, because the price surge has created enormous domestic pressure on President Trump.
So who's actually at the table in Islamabad? Walk us through the delegations.
NPR reports the U.S. side is led by Vice President J.D. Vance, with Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner alongside him. The Iranian team includes Parliamentary Speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf and Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Notably, the Iranian delegation was escorted into Pakistani airspace by fighter jets. It's a sign of just how tense and security conscious this whole affair is.
And Pakistan is playing mediator here. Why them specifically?
Pakistan emerged as the only country both sides actually trusted. They share a 920-kilometer border with Iran, which gives them genuine regional credibility. At the same time, they have strong military and economic ties with the United States. BBC News highlights the role of Pakistani Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir, whom President Trump has reportedly called his, quote, favorite field marshal, end quote. He and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif worked together to broker the ceasefire that made today's summit possible.
But Pakistan's neutrality here isn't exactly clean-cut, is it?
Not at all, and this is a really important wrinkle. Pakistan signed a strategic mutual defense agreement with Saudi Arabia back in September of 2025. That pact includes a collective defense clause modeled on NATO's Article 5, meaning aggression against one is treated as aggression against both. Pakistan has already deployed fighter jets and aerial refueling tankers to a Saudi airbase to help defend against Iranian drone and missile strikes. So if these talks collapse and Iran hits Saudi oil infrastructure again, Pakistan could be legally compelled to drop the mediator role and enter the war on the U.S.-Saudi side.
That's a tightrope. Let's get to what actually happened today at the Serena Hotel. What proposals came out of the first session?
The evening shuttle diplomacy focused on three big issues, according to the Japan Times and Fox News. First up was the Strait of Hormuz. Iran proposed what they called a managed reopening, allowing 15 vessels per day in exchange for transit tolls paid in Chinese yuan. Vice President Vance rejected that outright, calling it extortion and demanding immediate, unconditional passage. It was a tense opening exchange.
Was there any area where both sides found common ground?
There was one notable step. The U.S. reportedly agreed to release $6 billion in frozen Iranian assets held in Qatari accounts. It was framed as a test of goodwill, but it came with strings. The release is formally tied to Iran guaranteeing safe passage through the strait, so it's not a giveaway. It's a transaction, and it signals the U.S. is willing to use financial leverage as a carrot rather than just a stick.
What about Lebanon? That's been a flashpoint throughout the war.
It became a major sticking point today. Iranian negotiators demanded an immediate ceasefire in Lebanon, arguing it was part of the original truce. But Vance pushed back, describing it as a, quote, legitimate misunderstanding, end quote. He clarified that the current ceasefire covers only direct U.S.-Iran hostilities, not Israel's ongoing strikes against Hezbollah. To break the deadlock, both parties agreed to separate Israel-Lebanon peace talks, scheduled for April 14th in Washington.
So that's 3 days from now. The broader tone of these talks, though, seems pretty aggressive from the U.S. side. How would you characterize it?
Analysts are calling it capitulation diplomacy, Grace. President Trump hasn't been subtle about the power dynamic. He publicly said, quote, the only reason they are alive today is to negotiate, end quote. BBC News and PBS News observers point out that while the structure looks like traditional diplomacy, the substance feels more like a coercive surrender ultimatum. Iran is negotiating from a position of devastating weakness, and the U.S. isn't pretending otherwise.
Given all of that, what are the realistic chances this actually produces a deal?
It's hard to say. The pressure on both sides to reach an agreement is immense, but for very different reasons. Iran needs economic relief to survive. The U.S. needs oil prices to come down before domestic frustration boils over. Former Pakistani Foreign Secretary Aizaz Chaudhry put it well in an interview with the BBC. He said, quote, Pakistan has taken the horse to water, end quote, but the decision to drink rests entirely with Washington and Tehran. The next few days will tell us everything.
A critical few days ahead. Ethan, thank you for walking us through all of that.
Thanks, Grace.
We'll of course keep following developments out of Islamabad as those talks continue. Still ahead, our second story of the morning. We turn now to our other major story this morning, and it is a political earthquake in California. Congressman Eric Swalwell's campaign for governor is in freefall after multiple women came forward with sexual assault and misconduct allegations. The story broke just yesterday, and the fallout has been extraordinary. Chloe has been tracking all the developments. Chloe, walk us through what we know about these allegations.
This really started with a bombshell investigation from the San Francisco Chronicle published yesterday. an anonymous woman who began working for Swalwell in 2019 when she was just 21, accused him of sexually assaulting her on 2 separate occasions. She told the Chronicle the first incident happened while she was a staffer in 2019, and the second followed a charity gala in 2024. In both cases, she says she was too intoxicated to consent, and she explained the delay in coming forward by saying she feared no one would believe her given Swalwell's political stature.
Did the Chronicle have anything beyond her account to back this up?
They did review some supporting materials. The paper says it obtained contemporaneous text messages the woman sent to confidants around the time of the incidents. They also reviewed medical records, specifically pregnancy and STD tests that were obtained roughly a week after the 2024 alleged assault. Now, it's important to note that the Associated Press, the Washington Post, and NBC News have all pointed out that no independent forensic authority has yet authenticated those records or messages. But the Chronicle clearly felt confident enough in what it had to publish.
And then CNN came out with even more accusations from additional women?
That's right. CNN followed up with claims from 3 more women. One alleged she woke up in Swalwell's hotel room in 2025, with no memory of how she got there after a night of drinking with him. The other 2 women alleged Swalwell sent them unsolicited sexually explicit images and inappropriate messages through Snapchat. So when you add it all up, you've got 4 women on the record with various allegations ranging from assault to explicit digital harassment. It painted a pattern that clearly alarmed Democratic leadership.
And alarmed is an understatement. How fast did the political support collapse?
It was stunning, Grace. ABC News called it a stunning political reversal, and that's not an exaggeration. Within hours of the reports, Senator Adam Schiff and Senator Alex Padilla both withdrew their endorsements. Schiff went further and explicitly called for Swalwell to end his bid entirely. Senator Ruben Gallego and Representative Adam Gray also pulled their support. This wasn't a slow drip of defections. It happened almost all at once.
What about the people actually running his campaign day to day?
His campaign chair, Representative Jimmy Gomez, resigned his position and ended his support immediately. Gomez had been instrumental in running the operation, so losing him isn't just symbolic. It's a functional blow to the campaign's ability to operate. When your own campaign chair walks away within hours, that tells you how serious insiders view this.
Did House Democratic leadership weigh in?
They did, in a coordinated way. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, along with Whip Catherine Clark and Caucus Chair Pete Aguilar, put out a joint statement calling for a, quote, serious and thorough investigation, end quote. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi suggested any investigation should happen, quote, outside of a gubernatorial campaign, end quote, and called for full transparency. And Governor Gavin Newsom called the allegations, quote, deeply troubling, end quote. Nobody in the party's upper ranks is standing by him right now.
What about labor? Those unions are the backbone of Democratic campaigns in California.
Exactly, and that might be the most devastating piece of all this. SEIU California and the California Teachers Association both suspended campaign activities and pulled their endorsements. The California Federation of Labor Unions also indicated it's taking urgent steps to distance itself. In California Democratic politics, losing organized labor isn't just losing money. It's losing the ground game, the door knocking, the phone banking, all the infrastructure that gets voters to the polls. Without that machinery, a statewide campaign is essentially dead.
So what is Swalwell himself saying about all of this?
He's fighting back hard, at least rhetorically. He posted a video statement to social media late yesterday, calling the allegations, quote, flat, false, end quote, and, quote, lies, end quote. He framed the whole thing as a, quote, politically motivated hit job, end quote, designed to derail his momentum as a frontrunner just as mail-in ballots are about to go out. His legal team, led by attorney Elias Dubai, has sent cease and desist letters to the primary accuser and to social media influencers who had been circulating rumors of misconduct back in late March.
Did he address any of the specific claims directly?
He categorically denied the assault allegations, but he did acknowledge what he called, quote, mistakes in judgment, end quote, and, quote, poor behavior, end quote, in his past, describing those as private matters between him and his wife. He hasn't specified what that poor behavior entails. As of this morning, he has not withdrawn from the race. He says he's spending the weekend with his family and will provide a formal update after that.
Even if he does drop out, his name stays on the ballot though, right?
That's one of the most important details in this whole story. Under the California Elections Code, the deadline to officially withdraw from a statewide primary was March 6th of this year. The Secretary of State has already certified the candidate list. So even if Swalwell suspends all campaign activities today, every vote cast for him in the June 2nd primary will still be counted. The California Democratic Party has no legal mechanism to remove him. That's what makes this so dangerous for Democrats.
Explain that danger. Why does a zombie candidacy matter so much here?
It comes down to California's top two primary system. The two candidates who get the most votes on June 2nd advance to the general election, regardless of party. Before this scandal, Emerson College and Real Clear Polling had Swalwell as the leading Democrat, polling between about 13.7% and 17%. But Republican candidates Steve Hilton and Chad Bianco were already leading or tied with him at around 14 to 14.7%. CNBC reports that mail-in ballots go out to voters on May 4th, which is less than a month away.
So if Swalwell's voters scatter, what happens?
Democratic strategists are openly terrified of what they call a lockout scenario. Cal Matters and the Los Angeles Times both report that if the Democratic vote stays fractured among remaining candidates like billionaire Tom Steyer, Representative Katie Porter, and others, it's mathematically possible for Hilton and Bianco to claim both top two spots. That would leave Democrats without a candidate on the November ballot for governor for the first time in state history. The prediction market Kalshi already shows Tom Steyer as the new Democratic frontrunner, with his odds of advancing surging to 72% as voters flee Swalwell.
Has law enforcement gotten involved at this point?
No, and that's a significant detail. As of this morning, no official criminal investigation has been opened. The primary accuser told the Chronicle she hadn't contacted law enforcement because she feared she wouldn't be believed. The U.S. House Committee on Ethics hasn't launched a formal probe either. So right now this exists entirely in the court of public opinion and the political arena, not in any legal proceeding.
Yet the political damage seems like it might be irreversible regardless.
That's the consensus. Even if every allegation were somehow disproven tomorrow, the endorsements are gone, the unions have walked, and the campaign infrastructure has essentially disintegrated overnight. The question now isn't really whether Swalwell can recover. It's whether California Democrats can consolidate behind a single alternative fast enough to prevent two Republicans from locking them out of the general election. The next few weeks will determine the shape of this governor's race and possibly the direction of the state for years to come.
Remarkable story. Chloe, thank you for breaking all of that down for us this morning.
Thanks, Grace.
Here are some other headlines. On April 7th, 2026, Anthropic decided to play it safe by keeping their newest brainchild, Claude Mythos Preview, under lock and key. This frontier model is so sharp, it has experts worried about its bite, leading the company to skip a public release in favor of a restricted, defensive-only rollout. Mythos has demonstrated superhuman hacking abilities, sniffing out thousands of zero-day vulnerabilities like a bloodhound, including a 27-year-old flaw in the supposedly security-hardened OpenBSD. To keep this digital genie in the bottle, Anthropic launched Project Glasswing, a nest of over 40 partners including Google, Microsoft, and the Linux Foundation. CrowdStrike officials say we have reached a watershed moment where the only way to beat a bad bot is with a good one, shifting toward an agentic defense to combat an 89% yearly increase in AI-driven attacks. This gated community of code treats the model as a national security asset, with firms like JP Morgan Chase racing to spend $100 million in credits to shore up their digital vaults before the bad actors catch up. Turning to the nation's capital, First Lady Melania Trump stepped into the spotlight with a surprise televised address from the White House Grand Foyer on April 9th. She is calling for Congress to give the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein their day in the sun through public hearings, insisting their stories be carved into the congressional record. While she was quick to brush off any personal ties to Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell, her request has certainly stirred the political pot. House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer confirmed that the hearings will move forward, though a group of 15 survivors is worried this move just shifts the burden back onto the victims. The stakes are sky high for the committee, which has already sat down with Bill and Hillary Clinton and has a date to depose Bill Gates this coming June. In international news, the skies over Odessa were filled with fire on April 11th, as Russian drone strikes killed at least 2 people and wounded several others. The attack didn't pull any punches, hitting residential buildings and even a kindergarten. The Ukrainian Air Force managed to swat down 133 of the 160 drones launched, while Moscow claimed its own defenses were busy grounding 99 Ukrainian drones. This aerial friction comes just hours before a 32-hour Orthodox Easter ceasefire, scheduled to begin at 4 p.m. Saturday. President Zelensky says he is ready for a moment of silence and safety, but warned that if Russia breaks the peace, the response will be swift and loud. South of the border, Peru is preparing for a Sunday election on April 12th that is truly a heavyweight bout. With a record 35 candidates and a ballot paper larger than an extra-large pizza box, voters are finding it a lot to digest. The race is extremely fragmented, with Keiko Fujimori and comedian Carlos Alvarez leading a pack where no one has topped 15% in the polls. This revolving door of leadership has seen 8 presidents in 10 years, and with 57% of voters undecided, a June 7th runoff is all but certain. To keep things on the level, 600 international observers are watching the polls as the country transitions back to a bicameral legislature to tackle a surging security crisis. Finally, the Trump administration has unveiled a plan for a monument that is a tall order, even by Washington standards. On April 10th, they shared designs for a 250-foot-tall triumphal arch at Memorial Circle. This gilded giant will feature a winged figure, 2 eagles, and a pride of 4 golden lions at its base. While it is meant to celebrate the nation's 250th anniversary, preservationists say it's a vanity project that will overshadow the Lincoln Memorial and block the view of Arlington National Cemetery. The Commission of Fine Arts is set to review the golden proposal on April 16th, assuming the legal challenges from Vietnam veterans don't bring the project crashing down first. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with Claude Opus 4.6, Gemini Pro 3.1, Gemini Flash 3, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.